So trust today, especially brand trust, is at an all-time low. And there are a lot of factors that go into that. What I wanted to share with everyone is a sense of where brand trust is today. And as we shared in eMarketer, there's a fantastic study that talks about how millennials trust influencers twice as much as brands today, whereas boomers still trust influence and brands somewhat equally. So as a marketer, this is particularly challenging, right? Because we have to figure out how we can leverage different forms of marketing to make sure that we're driving a business impact for our clients. Fake news is a hot topic right now, as we all know. And one of the things that's particularly interesting is when we looked at the global search volume for fake news, we found that it's up 400% in the past year, which isn't surprising because you've got politicians and the media each disparaging one another, claiming that the other is fake news, right? The challenge with that, though, is that it diminishes the trust in those institutions. And so for us, as we look at leveraging influence at scale in the form of native advertising and many other things, it's a huge caution, right? Because if they continue to disparage the credibility of news, it's only going to hurt the trust that people have in the content we're trying to get out there. One of the things that we're seeing now are that very savvy influencers are using a lot of different tactics to boost their reach because they think that if they have a higher reach on a topic, that a brand is more likely to hire them to write about their product or service. But in reality, they're faking that reach number. And so as marketers, we need to be cognizant of the fact that reach should be, of course, a metric that you look at, but you need to look at it in conjunction with engagement, relevance, and some of those other things to make sure that you're balancing it out and understand that this person truly is the right, most relevant person to talk about your brand. There are actually 6 different types of influence. So everything from publisher content, which is news-driven type content, to influencers, which would be KOLs or key opinion leaders, celebrities, trusted endorsers of your brand, if you will. Then you have things like videos that could come from any of those sources, ratings and reviews that can come from an influencer or user-generated via star rating, awards that you could receive. So there's lots of different types of influence, but at the core, influence is really about a trusted third party saying something about you. So influence can be organic, where someone has a great experience with your brand and wants to tweet or post or share that experience. Or we can identify influencers who are the most credible and authoritative based on the topic that we're trying to convey and actually hire them or commission that content. So whether that's an influencer or a publisher serving in that role to create that trusted third-party content, both work. So one of the benefits of influence is that if you think about it, it's the most trusted and credible type of content that you can have. And so if you look at a brand funnel, at the very top is awareness, then you get to the middle, it's about consideration, right? And so by amplifying and targeting influence to the precise person at the right time in their brand journey, what you're able to do is accelerate the movement through the funnel. So you serve them that earned content to answer whatever search question they're asking, and then you follow it with a brand message to close the loop and drive them faster to purchase. And we find consistently that leveraging that approach, that we really look to prime the pump with influence and then close the deal with the brand ad, and it works much better than simply just hitting people with lots of frequency around brand ads. Over the last 3 years, we've spent a lot of time looking at data against different business impacts. And we have tested this methodology against driving sales, driving credibility, etc. And we know that across every single business objective, that following this, serving the influence and priming the pump with it and following it with a brand ad, it drives more effective user journey, but it accelerates the path to purchase, it's more cost effective, and overall just a better approach to drive a media strategy. There are 5 things that we like to look at when selecting an influencer. The first is authority. So we look typically at search data to see who has the most authority and rank on certain topics or messages, keywords, if you will. And so that's kind of the first thing we look at. Then the second thing we look at are the social media metrics. So we leverage a bunch of different influencer identification tools to look at who has the most relevance against those terms. What's the engagement rate of said sources around those terms? Is that engagement rate falling or is it rising? What is it over time, right? And then we also look at reach. So we talked a bit before about why reach is kind of the 4th thing we look at, but the reason it's 4th is that there's a lot of influencer fraud where influencers are faking their reach numbers. So we look at it 4th as a metric of consideration, but not a core must-have reach of X metric anymore. And then the last thing we look at is history. So we want to make sure that we're reading the person's posts or content, and that we want to make sure they're talking about our brand favorably. Are they already endorsing our competitors? So these are all the things that we want to look at to understand who this person really is and what's the type of content and the voice in which they write it. Brands really need to shift the way that they think about influence, right? It's not I'm going to test it, fluffy, nice to have thing that I keep on the side. It is the most credible, authoritative, cost-effective way to drive a business impact nowadays, right? And in order to leverage that, they need to rethink the way in which they market, and also how they're structured to enable it to flow across all of their different marketing aspects so that they're getting the most lift and benefit from it. I think that's probably one of the most important things I want people to take away.